Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, everybody. Good morning. Shall we start? The strength seems to be very less, but then it's already time. Are we done with the plasmid vectors? I remember to have discussed about what are the two different types of plasmids, examples of the plasmids. Plasmids also serve as the cloning vehicles because they are the extra chromosomal genetic material that is present in the bacterial systems. And then how to construct a recombinant or an artificially engineered vector or a cloning vehicle that can be accomplished by manipulating the genetic material of the vector DNA that is present in the bacterial systems, and then according to our requirement we can extract the target DNA or the gene of interest that can subsequently be inserted into a plasmid vector. And once we are inserting the target DNA or the foreign DNA into the plasmid, we need to differentiate between that this plasmid vector, which is consisting of a foreign DNA or the DNA of insert in the vector on introducing into a suitable host. How do we distinguish between the host cells as to whether these host cells, which of the host cells are said to be having a cloned vector molecule? In other words, which of the host cells are having the inserted foreign DNA in the vector incorporated into the bacterial cell? As it is a random phenomena and we don't monitor it through our naked eye, we cannot visualize that there are some bacterial cells which do not have the foreign DNA or the vector DNA. And in order to distinguish between those which are consisting of the inserted DNA and the non-recombinant ones, we use the strategy of selectable markers. So we know if the antibiotic resistant gene is having a target DNA or the foreign DNA incorporated due to the presence of the restriction enzyme recognition sequences within these selectable marker genes, it is easy for us to insert the target DNA into these genes, and once inserted, it leads to insertional inactivation of the resistance property. The reason is very simple. The functional antibiotic resistance gene is disrupted, is inactivated, and that's the reason why the host cells which were earlier, because they do not have the presence of the foreign DNA, the vector had the property of the antibiotic resistance, and now due to the insertional inactivation, such bacterial cells are rendered to be sensitive to the antibiotics when we subject these host cells to grow in a medium consisting of the antibiotics. That's what we have learnt. And another strategy is we had devised or engineered one artificially synthesized PBr322 plasmid, and this was further modified, manipulated by using another instead of just using the selectable marker genes, that is the antibiotic resistance gene, in another plasmid, a derivative of the PBr322 called as the PUC plasmid, PUC19. In this plasmid, we are using the LAGZ gene, which is functional. That means all the cells which have the presence of the functional LAGZ gene, they show the capability of the enzyme beta galactosidase to metabolize, to utilize lactose or the sugars which are present in the medium that can be utilized by such bacterial cells. So hence these cells will be LAGZ plus. But if you are introducing a foreign DNA into the LAGZ gene, then this LAGZ gene is inactivated due to the insertion of the foreign DNA. Now that the foreign DNA has been incorporated, the cells are now transformed from LAGZ plus to LAGZ minus. This transformation of the cells due to insertional inactivation helps us to find out as to which of the host cells are having a vector that is carrying the foreign DNA of our interest and those which do not have this inserted DNA fragment. In this case, the selection is based upon using a substrate called X-gal and a colored complex which will be formed when the X-gal is converted by the beta galactosidase gene on reaction with the IPTG, whether to form the colonies or not to form colored complex. So because of the presence of normal copy of the gene for LAGZ, it will give us the presence of blue colored colonies. But if the foreign DNA is inserted, because it is inactivating the function of LAGZ gene, the colored complex is not obtained. Instead, the colonies which are formed will be white in color. So this PEG plasmid, it is also known as not just using the antibiotic resistance gene, we can also select through the blue-white screening method that involves the role of LAGZ gene. So till here we discussed in the previous class. So those students who are not there or who could not follow, just it was a recap. Now the second category of the viruses or the phages which are dependent on the bacterial cells. I think I talked about this also. In this case, the bacteriophage vectors, how are we going to exploit? Yeah, I remember that we discussed about this slide, that how these phages, they undergo two pathways, one called as the lytic pathway and the other called as the lysogenic pathway. As our objective is to produce multiple copies of the target gene, so we require not the lysogenic pathway, we require the lytic pathway. And we know in lytic pathway, as soon as the phage DNA enters the bacterial cell, either it can go lysogenic or lytic, but in the lytic cycle, what happens is it takes over the bacterial host machinery. And while it does so, by taking over, it starts replicating, synthesizing its own material that is required for the production of progeny phages. So therefore, we have multiple copies of these progeny and a single phage infection can yield approximately 200 progeny phages. So it's a huge number, large number, and that too it is just due to the consequence of infection of a single phage, a single virus infecting a single bacterial cell generating 200 progenies. So it's a massive number. Therefore, we can exploit this pathway for designing our vectors, how these viruses can be converted or can be used as vector. At the same time, due to the presence of genes that are specific for lytic and lysogenic cycle. If I can remove the genes that are essential or critical for induction of lysogeny and just check that the lytic cycle genes are present. Then we can replace these lysogenic cycle genes by the insert or a foreign DNA. And then as the lambda genome has the ends which will have the protruding ends said to be having a 12 base pair cos site which are easy for annealing. And we know that once it enters, if it has to undergo bacterial cell, if it has to undergo a lysogenic cycle, the phage genome circularizes, which was earlier in the linear double-stranded DNA. On infection and on entry into the bacterial cell, these cohesive sites or the cos sites of the phage genome, they circularize, they again rewind or they anneal, the two ends of the genome anneal, forming a circular DNA molecule. So this property is due to the presence of these cos sites. What we can do is, if the size of the insert is small, you need not remove the lysogenic cycle genes. We can insert between the two cos sites which are present on the either ends of the phage genome. So either this way or through replacing the lysogenic cycle, we can design a bacteriophage vector. Therefore, the DNA of nearly 20 kb, which comprises the lysogenic genes, that can be removed and we can insert the target gene which we would want to work with. Now this recombinant DNA is now finally packaged into the viral heads. And remember, all these manipulation techniques do not occur in vivo, in nature, natural process. This is not a natural process. It is done in the lab. So once the viral heads are packaged with the target DNA, now they need to infect bacterial cells. As I just mentioned, so when the bacteria, such virus particle infect the bacterial cells, it will liberate progeny phages which are carrying the target gene. And now we just inserted one copy into a single virus. Now this single virus is now, by utilizing the bacterial host machinery, will help us to deliver 200 copies of this DNA insert which was packaged in the viral head. Hence, what are the precautions we have taken? We had seen to that all the lytic genes are present because they are critical in multiplication, in the process of replication. And once it is done, it is packaged and then we render such manipulated bacteriophages for infection into the nearby cells. So these formation of plaques, whenever the phage is engulfing or is eating away the bacteria, it forms a clear zone, and these zones are what are referred to as plaques. Why there is a clear zone? Because the bacterial cells are killed by the virus. Followed? So this was done, I think, when I talked about the selection method. Do you remember selection method? The bacterial colonies containing the recombinant DNA are replica plated. The diagram which I just started today, this is the explanation for that. You want me to repeat this? Now that we have understood how these students, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, right. So maybe I can just go back to those two diagrams once I finish the lambda vectors. Those are the diagrams which are related to the screening of these bacterial plasmids. So I will tell you what are they. The same explanation which I have given for selection of recombinant clones. So now that we have understood about the bacteriophage genome, let's look at what types of vectors can we construct. How can we construct these? What method does it involve? We have one category of the lambda vectors which are specifically known as lambda replacement vectors. This word itself is the key for us to understand that what are we going to do is we are going to remove something, remove something and then fill that gap by replacing with our DNA of insert. So in simple terms, such lambda genome vectors where you are removing and replacing something else which is not a part of its own genetic material are called as lambda replacement vectors. Again, now what should be the features? What properties should such lambda replacement vectors have? This is what we will see. Number one, they need to possess the target site for restriction enzyme. And you know what is the importance of restriction site now? It is the point at which or the place where within the genome we are going to insert the target DNA. So therefore, the first requirement is that they must contain target sites for restriction enzyme. Then the remaining part of the lambda genome, which we have seen earlier saying that we will remove the genes that are essential for the induction of lysogenic pathway. So that genes will be removed and will be replaced by the foreign DNA. Then the ligation of the foreign DNA into the lambda genome will occur randomly. Why do you say randomly? Because wherever the formation of gaps are there, if the target site of a restriction enzyme is not just one target site within the phage genome, if there are more than one sites, let us presume there are two target sites of a specific restriction enzyme. When there are two target sites, what happens? The linear DNA molecule will have two gaps, generating three fragments. Just draw it on a book. Just draw a single line, and then we have said there are two target sites for a restriction enzyme. So put two arrows, and then once you put the arrow, then it will generate three fragments. Three fragments with a gap between 1 and 2 and another gap between the second and the third fragment. So if such a situation occurs, then the multiple copies of the target gene which we are mixing up along with the lambda genome will tend to incorporate more number of copies of the foreign DNA, forming a concatemer. Let me draw and explain. Now let's presume that this is the phage DNA and this is subjected to restriction digestion. So what I just said, there is one target site here and another one just to discriminate. So these are the two places where we have the recognition sites for the restriction enzyme. So as a result of this, what we generate is we will generate three fragments. So this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Now these three, the gaps which are generated between these fragments, here we can have the insertion of our desired target gene of interest. So this is the position here. These two probably, now this single phage genome is having a double insert of the foreign DNA. And how did this happen? Always remember, whenever we are looking for or we are targeting for that the foreign DNA has to be inserted into the host genome, these ends which are generated, they should be the cohesive ends. So these two ends should be cohesive ends. So here also and here also. When this, it should exist both between the viral DNA as well as the recombinant DNA or the foreign DNA. Both of them should have similar tails. And only when this is there, then due to the complementary base pairing, they can anneal faster. Let me just try it, whether I can draw here, or do we have another slide? Let's try. Let's say this is the phage genome. Okay, this is just zoom it. So this gap I'm drawing, gap between 1 and 2. This is how the gaps will be formed. They will not be so small. This part of it we can extend further. So this is the first one, first gap. Now next one, here also. Now this part is continuous. And what we get here is it now clear for you to understand? Now I will draw this. Now because of the presence of these kind of protruding ends, now how should our this violet color target DNA be? Because it has to insert between these two. So if you want to have a DNA of our size, this is, you have a protruding end in the 3' end and there is a small. The protruding end is consisting of the 3' end. So our target DNA should have some fragment like this. Let me draw here in the center. Now this is the construction how here it should be extending. This is how this is the recombinant DNA, the foreign DNA which we have extracted, which comes, this whole thing should come and sit here. How is it possible? Can you see this part? This and this will align, complementary base pairing, this and this, and you will have this tail annailing with this one. Are you able to follow, students? This fragment, this 5' end comes and sits at this position. So we have completed here. This part is annealed. The other end will be, this has to be separated. This should be a distant apart. Now this end of it will come and align with this, so that this fragment will fit into this region. So that is how the target DNA as well as the host DNA will form. So here we can have such complementary fragments here which are of this type. This is how the recombinant DNA will be having. Are you able to follow? This is the size of the insert, DNA of insert. Clear? Now the ligation of multiple DNA inserts will help in the formation of concatemers. That means a single cell or the single phage vector is not just having a single foreign DNA, single molecule of the foreign DNA, but it is consisting of more than one copy of the foreign DNA. So such multiple length copies with multiple replication complexes. Replication complexes are consisting of multiple insert so that all of them will multiply. Generates a concatemer. Now these vector and target molecules are interspersed now. So first we have the lambda DNA, then we had the insert now, then again in the next we had the lambda DNA, then we had the insert, and then we had the lambda DNA. And because of the cohesive ends, it can still recircularize. Therefore, in replacement vectors, the internal region is replaced by the target gene and it will help the phage inviable in an appropriate host. Now, this word inviable has to have a special mention. Why? Because you have manipulated the genetic material. Now we also need to check for a host which will help in the propagation of such replacement vectors. And instead of banking on those hosts which will not permit such kind of the vector DNA to work in the host machinery. So therefore, not just manipulating, using a suitable host also is one of the essential criteria. Now, these are generally designed to carry larger pieces of DNA. Why do we use these lambda vectors? The main objective behind using the phage vectors is we had a limitation when we were using bacterial plasmids as vectors. Now I want to overcome. Now why there is a necessity for me to incorporate larger pieces of DNA? Now for instance, I want to work with the foreign DNA. In this case is probably a gene from the plant or from an animal or from a human being. And all these three organisms being the examples of eukaryotic system, the genes are not so small. The length of the genes, structural genes, is not so small or not as small as the bacterial cells or the phage genes. These are pretty large because the whole DNA is huge. A single structural gene has to undergo processing and it is consisting of both the exons and introns. So we require larger DNA. So in order to insert such large DNA fragments, we require vectors which will have the ability to incorporate such large size DNA fragments. But it is not possible naturally. So therefore, what are we doing? Because we know that how the vectors or how the viral genome exists and how we can see that its functionality is not disturbed. We do not want to kill the virus, but how can we exploit the kind of genes which it is carrying, and due to the presence of these cause sites, what we can do is we can insert the larger pieces of the DNA through the replacement of the genes which are not essential or non-essential. Therefore, the selection now, after we have done all this process, unlike the bacterial plasmids, even the phage vectors also should be checked that which of the phages are carrying our desired target DNA and which particles are not having the desired target DNA of interest. So now to distinguish between the recombinant and the non-recombinant cells, as we know that the frequency of recombinants will be comparatively lesser than the recombinant, the frequency of non-recombinants will be lesser in comparison to the recombinant ones. So how do we do that? We have one example of a Faj vector called as lambda EMBL4. Now let's check the process of selection for the lambda genome. This is the diagram which I was trying to explain. What are lambda insertion vectors? And on the left, this figure is familiar to everybody. All of you know the size of the lambda genome is 48,000. Okay, the other day I thought I mentioned as 4,000. It is indeed 48,000. So just in case I made a mistake, please correct it. The size of the lambda genome is 48,000 kb. So it has some genes, the C1 repressor, we know this, the replication genes which are essential for the induction of lysogeny, the lysis genes, early genes, all those coat genes, etc. So just I'll skip this. Now look at this, the lambda replacement vector. This is the region where the head and tail genes are present. And there is a target site. RS signifies restriction site for a restriction enzyme. So here one and here is another one. And these are the regulatory genes. Now the foreign DNA of insert which was extracted, now it has to be inserted now. So how did we do that? Who is that? Please mute your microphone. Some student has unmuted. Kindly mute your microphones. So this region, somebody is sleeping. This region is replaced. This is removed and is replaced by the target DNA of our insert. So you can see here finally what are we getting? The same sized fragment, just replacing the DNA, that is the non-essential genes. Okay, this one I will discuss when I am doing the M13 vector. On that below, at the bottom, you can see there is an insertion vector. Unlike the lambda replacement vector, just understand the basic difference between what is meant by insertion and replacement. Replacement means you remove something and then fill that gap. Whatever, how much ever of the content you have removed, you simply insert the same, substitute it. That is called replacement. On the contrary, insertion means you are not removing anything. You are simply inserting something by creating a gap within the genome. And this insertion vectors will be larger in size than the native size of its genome in comparison to the replacement vectors where the size of the genome will be standard, it is fixed. You have simply removed some and then just stitched up the same sized foreign DNA. So there is no additional burden to the bacterial cell or to the vector. But in the case of insertional vector, there is an additional burden because the size of the genome increases. Therefore, if you have to insert, now again, in comparison to the size of the insert which we can plan, actually it could be large for a replacement vector, but when it comes to insertion vector, the size has to be restricted or it has to be comparatively smaller than the replacement vector. Understood? That's the difference. So here there is a diagram showing you the difference between insertion and replacement. This is the genome. Small fragment and then there you have to make a nick. So this will open a gap and within the gap you are inserting. That's it. Whereas replacement, what did you do? You had excised. You had to make a nick in such a way that a part of the genome is excised, is removed and is replaced by the foreign DNA. The same thing again, the Phage DNA is cleaved with a restriction enzyme that cuts it only once. Whereas for replacement, we require 2 cuts so that the center fragment can be removed, creating a big gap, and that big gap will be replaced by the DNA of our desired gene. Therefore, in insertion vectors, there is no removal of the Phage DNA. Nothing, no genetic material is lost. However, as I just mentioned, I said, in comparison to the lambda replacement vectors, we cannot plan to insert a large target DNA. Comparatively, it has to be smaller. What is the size? Maximally, we can insert not more than 8 kb. The foreign DNA of insert has to be around 8 kb. And where are we inserting? Near the C1 gene. All of you remember what is the job of C1 gene, especially in lambda genome? This is the gene which controls the lysogenic pathway. Now that we have inserted, the insertional inactivation of the C1 gene means that recombinants are distinguished as clear rather than the turbid plaques, because you have inactivated the C1 gene, and we know that by now you should have understood that C1 gene is the key gene that introduces or induces lysogeny. Because it is inducing lysogeny, the phage is supposed to rest. But what did we do? We have inactivated the C1 gene by inserting a target DNA. So the sequences of the C1 gene are disturbed due to the additional genetic sequences which are inserted. So that now, which was earlier C1 plus, now it becomes C1 minus. And when it does so, what will happen? Earlier we had turbid plaques, now we will have clear plaques. The two examples of lambda insertion vectors are lambda GT10 and lambda GT11. Just let me go back to the previous slide. Another example which we can use, not just the not only the lambda genome, we can also exploit the M13 phage for construction of recombinant vectors, bacteriophage vectors. What is this colony hybridization? When I was talking about the process of replica plating, how do we do the selection? Now, just apart from just having the replica plating of the bacterial colonies, we can also have the phage plaques in order to select those plaques which are consisting of our desired target gene. So we want to immobilize. These plaques will be immobilized onto a nitrocellulose membrane. Then these cells are lysed and the DNA is denatured. Because we are going to subject the genetic material to a process called as autoradiography, which involves probing for a desired target DNA. Because I already know which is the gene or what was the DNA fragment which I had inserted, what I will do is I will also create a small probe. What is a probe? A probe is an oligo. An oligo means nothing but a small stretch of single-stranded DNA which ranges to nearly 30 base pairs. What will I do? I will artificially synthesize for the target gene which I have extracted a single-stranded DNA probe. Well, the probe can be DNA or RNA. However, because in this case we want to hybridize with the DNA, I prefer a DNA probe. And the size of the probe is nearly 30 base pairs. Now, this 30 base pairs of small stretch of the single-stranded DNA is tagged with a radioisotope, and this is what we call it as the radio labeling. In this case, we will tag it with the P32 radioisotope, and what I do, I'll keep my probe ready. Now my culture is ready. Now I want to identify that from the Phage plaques, which of the plaques are consisting of the target gene, which is having the target gene of insert, and some plaques probably they would not have the inserted DNA. So what I'll do, I will subject the whole plate, pour the radio labeled probe into the Petri plate and give some time under favorable conditions so that the radio labeled probe fetches its own complementary sequences within these phages or the bacterial phage plaques or the bacterial colonies. Now, wherever they will find complementary regions, the probe will obviously go and bind. But if there are no complementary regions to this probe, whatever probe we have put it in the medium, after we remove it, after a half an hour or 1 hour, we are giving the time for identification of the probe to identify within the phage plaques where is the complementary sequences lying in which of the colonies or in which of the plaques. After 1 hour, whatever is the probe which was subjected, and wherever those that found their complementary sequences, they will bind. And those which are left extra, we do the washing step so that it will remove away the probe. So there will be some probes which had reached their destination due to the presence of complementary sequences to that of the probe. And it is tagged with a radioisotope and the excess probe is washed away. But because it is a radioisotope, we still can't see it with the naked eye. So we need to now check for where all did the probe go and bind. The binding of these probes now have to be visualized by subjecting them through the exposure to X-rays, and this exposure of the bacterial cells or the phage plaques is what is known as autoradiography. Now someone might have a question, why auto? Auto is something which is innate by itself automatically, because the probe is automatically bound and we had inserted the radioisotope, so this has to fluoresce. The colonies wherever the probe went and bound to the bacterial colonies or to the phage plaques, they will on exposure to X-rays. Radiography is nothing but it is exposure to the X-rays. And why did I use this word auto? Because the probe reached these bacterial cells as well as the phage plaques. Now the colonies or the plaques which are having the bound probe will fluoresce, will show like the dark bands on exposure. And everybody knows that when the photographic film earlier, we had the X-rays being when you click a photograph, all our images, that is the black will look white and the white will turn out to be negative. So in a similar manner, these clones will be fluorescing, and we will see the presence of the dark colored spots wherever the probe has gone and bound. So such plaques or the bacterial cells are selected because we started with the process of replica plating. So we will decode that which of them are showing the fluorescence and which of them are not from the master plate. We will isolate those. Then finally we will try to enrich those plaques or the bacterial colonies which are consisting of the DNA of insert in a complete medium so that they propagate faster. And thus, in a natural way, we are amplifying the target DNA. The desirable probe for the DNA of interest is used. So this all I finished. Now look at this. This is the master plate and this is the membrane onto which you can see the position of the colonies is exactly the same the way we do the process of replica plating. Just blot it onto the nylon membrane. And this is the probe. The probe is lying here in the solution. Probe is nothing but a short stretch of DNA which is labeled with a radioactive isotope. Now that solution we will put it in the not in the master plate on the replica plates which we are so that we will screen them. So in the replica plate we are trying to identify. So wherever the radio label probe it finds its complementary regions, it will go and bind. So only these three colonies are showing the presence of complementarity. All these don't. So this we are decoding from the master plate. So washing off, what did we do? We washed off the probe which was earlier used for fishing out the complementary sequences. Now this plate is exposed to X-rays. You click a photograph and this is how we can identify from the photograph that this, this and these are the clones which are consisting of our desired. And now that we have immobilized onto the nylon filter, so it is easy for us to recover the DNA fragments or the plaques or the colonies and then subculture them for further manipulation. Understood, students? So that was about the phage vectors, how the phages can be exploited for genetic engineering. So we started learning first about the bacterial plasmid. Now slowly we have also learned that not just the bacteria, even the phages also can be used for as cloning vehicles. And the advantage with phages is that we can introduce target DNA of larger size. So that is what is important. Now we have the third type called as cosmids. As the name suggests, cos and mids. So it looks like a cocktail, a chimera or a mixture of the two types which we had been discussing so far. What are we doing here? Cosmids are those vectors or those cloning vehicles which are a combination of plasmid and the phage vectors. Hence we call these recombinant, and always remember this is again a cosmid does not occur naturally. It is engineered in the laboratories. Now let's look at what are the properties of such cosmids. These are hybrid DNA molecules with a dual role or doing the double job of a plasmid and of that of the properties of the phage. So they have a dual life. They can exist in the phages. They can also thrive in the bacterial cells. The plasmid part, because we said that this is an admixture of phage and the plasmid. So the plasmid part, what is the job of the plasmid part? It will carry the origin of replication along with the selectable marker genes. And now we know already that what is the purpose of having this gene for replication. It will render the target DNA to replicate. And this is what is our objective also. And the second thing is, because the selectable marker gene is studded with restriction sites, easy for us to identify which of the plasmid is consisting of the desired target gene of interest, because it is having the restriction sites for restriction enzymes. So these are the two properties which we are exploiting or using in the construction of a plasmid. And in the lambda part, what are we checking for? This will allow that the DNA can be packaged in the phage heads, because it is having the genetic material of the phage genome. So the phage genetic material helps in packaging in the phage head. And then once we are able to package along with the plasmid part of the gene, the DNA insert, it can be used to infect large number of bacterial cells to generate large number of copies within a short span of time through the process of transduction, which is nothing but the lytic pathway. The absence of viral genes for Vir proteins. What is this absence of viral genes for Vir proteins? These are a set of genes which govern the process of transfer of the viral genome into the bacterial cell. Pathogenic genes, the genes which render or give the viruses a property of pathogenicity for the purpose of infection. So these genes are removed. Hence the viral particles are not formed. If you remove the Vir genes, then because it is unable to infect, then it cannot infect the host cell and it will not give rise to the formation of the progeny phages. What do you understand by a phage infection? When the phage invades the bacterial cell, killing the bacterial cell. And when it is killing the bacterial cell, when it is undergoing lytic cycle. So the viral particles will not be formed if the Vir proteins are removed. And if they are, why they are not formed? As it is unable to induce the lytic pathway. That means such kind of plasmids are non-pathogenic. These are non-pathogenic. They will not cause any kind of a disease, unlike the native phages which have the property of infection. The packaged plasmids. Now that we have designed the plasmid which is having the property of carrying the target DNA and the genes that are necessary for replication, we have completed or accomplished that. Now this plasmid or this designed vector is packaged to infect host cells like the lambda inducing lysis. That means these phage particles are supposed to infect the bacterial cells. And once they infect the bacterial cells, what happens? They can replicate and propagate like plasmids. Because of the presence of origin of replication, they need not get incorporated into the bacterial genome, but they can be in the bacterial cell and can replicate, forming multiple copies of the plasmids. And they can also incorporate into the bacterial genome like a plasmid that usually incorporates during lysogeny, forming a prophage. Either this way or that way. Hence, if you want to construct a cosmid, what are the prerequisites? It requires enzymes that package the DNA molecule. So we need not the virulence genes or the vir genes, but we require genes that will help or render the job of packaging this cosmid DNA along with the DNA of insert into the viral coat. And apart from the enzymes necessary for insertion, it should also have the cos sites, so that will help in allowing the insertion of the DNA, as well as at times for once it enters the bacterial cells, if it wants to incorporate, then through the process of circularizing, due to the presence of these cos sites, it can undergo lysogeny also. The second requirement is the in vitro packaging. While we are trying to package our desired target DNA, because it is a combination of a cosmid and a plasmid, we can incorporate any fragment of DNA that ranges comparatively what we discussed about the phage and the bacterial sizes. Now we have a bigger range now. We can incorporate almost the size of 37 to 52 kb. And where are we going to package them? We are giving a insertional vector. We are simply inserting, after engineering a cosmid, we are inserting the size of the target DNA, which is nearly 50 kb, and that too between the two cos sites of the phage DNA. So near its vicinity, the presence of selectable marker genes are there, and if such genes go and incorporate in the selectable marker genes again, this can also help us in selecting using the strategy of antibiotic susceptibility or the property of resistance. And they have the property of replication, because the origin of replication is also a part which is also lying on the same segment of the fragment where the foreign DNA of insert is lying. So hence such cosmids are said to be more efficient in comparison to that of the either the plasmid or the phagmid or the phage vectors. On the left here, this is the diagram of a cosmid. This is the cos site, and where the point at which the two cos sites have joined, it seemed to be carrying a target site for a restriction enzyme called SMA1. Look at this ORIV. I just now mentioned that we can have the plasmid part of the genome is this side, which is having the origin of replication along with the selectable marker gene. These are the target sites. So such a kind of recombinant DNA molecules will do the dual purpose. They can thrive in bacterial cells like a plasmid, or else they can behave like viruses. Such cosmids, they will behave like viruses by infecting the bacterial cells, inducing lytic cycle, so that large number of copies of the target DNA can be released. Do I stop at this time? Please answer your attendance